Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go over the last section of the cells and systems unit. We're going to be talking about diseases, some certain diseases that affect the specific systems, as well as the evolution of some of the diseases and when the first vaccines and those types of things came up. We're obviously doing this video for obvious reasons with the coronavirus. We're not going to talk about the coronavirus here. I'm going to leave it up to you guys to maybe do a little bit of research on the coronavirus and tell us exactly how it is affecting our systems. So we're going to go from there. This is going to be a fairly long lesson. There's about 20 slides. There's a lot of pictures and whatnot. If it was in the classroom, we'd be having a lot of really cool discussion about it. But we're not in the classroom. Just mentioned coronavirus. So here we are. Let's start. So diseases, you may have heard, prevention is better than a cure. That's why we're at home right now, exactly for that. Right? We're trying to prevent this disease from spreading. So we're going to start by talking about germs. Germs are what actually cause disease and infection. Okay? Louis Pasteur was one of the first to discover microorganisms. So you may have heard of Louis Pasteur. When you hear the name Pasteur, think of pasteurization, those types of things. So he called these small, tiny little microorganisms germs. And I'll get some really cute ones over right there. He suggested and proved that germs were the cause of disease. There were a series of tests and whatnot. That was something he figured, and he proved it. Okay, so Pasteur's discovery led to pasteurization. You may have heard of pasteurization. Whenever I hear pasteurization, I think of milk. Okay, so what pasteurization actually was is just taking a liquid, heating it up to 60 degrees before consuming and killing the microorganisms. You may have heard of boil water alerts or those types of things where you have to heat up the water or the substance that you're going to eat or drink. And the reason we have to heat it up is we want to kill those germs that could be potentially harmful. So that's where pasteurization came from. Then we talk about viruses. Okay? Viruses were discovered by, they were discovered by investigating a disease called the tobacco mosaic disease in plants. Okay? So this was a disease that was affecting a bunch of tobacco plants. So scientists actually use special filters to separate out the bacteria. After several runs of filtering, they noticed that the plants continued to die. So they removed any bacteria that was in the plants, thinking that would actually fix them. Didn't happen. The plants continued to die. Okay. What they ended up by finding out was it wasn't bacteria that was harming or killing these plants or causing the infection. It was something called a virus. Okay, and you may have heard of viruses before. There's a really big one going around right now that we're trying to find a cure for. This led to vaccines, something else we're looking for right now. So the smallpox virus used to be the leading cause of death worldwide. So it was a very, very big disease that was killing a bunch of people. Okay? And there's a beautiful picture of some of the symptoms of smallpox. You end up by get rashes filled with pus, chills, high fevers, nausea, and muscle aches. Wouldn't want that, wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy. Okay. Edward Jenner, very important scientist. He was a gentleman that observed milkmaids. So back in the day, he observed that milkmaids who came down with something that was very, very similar to smallpox called cowpox. He observed that these milkmaids very rarely came down with smallpox. Okay, he came to a conclusion using the scientific method that contracting cowpox made you immune to smallpox. So if you got the less harmful cowpox, you didn't have to worry about smallpox. Okay, so he did the next obvious thing. He just started injecting people with the cowpox disease. I'm sure he used proper methods. Okay, and this allowed people to develop a natural immunity to the smallpox. So the bodies automatically were able to go and counteract the smallpox. Okay, this was the world's first vaccine. And we get vaccines now all the time. Vaccines are given to us all the time. Smallpox, effectively, it was eradicated in 1977. I've heard rumors of it coming back here and there, but for all intents and purposes, it's gone because of that vaccine. So how do vaccines actually work? Here we go. We'll go over it very fast. Our body's natural infection fighters, antibodies and white blood cells, take a long time to produce. Okay, Vaccines, when we're injecting people with the actual vaccine, it doesn't actually contain the live vaccine, the live viruses, okay? It contains dead ones, okay? So these things cannot actually cause the disease. So the vaccines trigger our immune response, so it triggers our bodies to a certain disease by giving you a deactivated version of the disease. So they give us the deactivated version of the disease. Our bodies, infection fighters, learn how to fight these diseases. And then when ever live version is, if the live version is ever given to us, if we ever come down with it again, our body will already have immunity to the virus. Our body will already know how to beat it up and get rid of it. Okay. Perfect example of this is the flu vaccine. You get a flu vaccine every single year. If you go and get the flu vaccine every single year, their body, when you get it, your body's going to start acting up. Those antibodies are going to start fighting those dead virus cells that they've injected into us, so that if we do come across the actual flu, we're golden. We don't have to worry so much about it. The hopes are COVID-19 will soon have a vaccine to go along with that. Factors that affect our body system. There's also a lot of factors that affect our body system. So obviously exposure to bacteria or virus. I'm in front of a computer right now recording a video so you guys can learn at home for this exact reason. We're doing social isolating right now, trying to stay away from everybody for this reason. We want to stop the exposure to this virus. Another thing is genetics. Genetics do play a role. If your parents have a history of some sort of illness, there's a possibility that you could also get that illness. So in those cases, you can take preventative matters. Sensitivity to the environmental factors. So we've talked about pollen. We talked about in the springtime when the pollen cells or pollen is all over the, drifting all over the air, whatnot. You start getting allergies. I get allergies every spring. I can't stand it. I'm sneezing and sniffling like crazy. That's a factor that affects the body system. So pollution and allergens. We had a few forest fires the last few years, and so there's a lot of air quality reports. With football coaching and whatnot, we had practices actually canceled because of the air quality. That also affects the body system. Responses to stress. Right now, I am recording videos and making sure I get all these lessons out and making sure you guys all have access to them and answering emails from parents and from kids and from other teachers and finding out something is new tomorrow. It's different than it's going to be different tomorrow than it was yesterday. And then I've got 2 kids at home, which I have to teach. And all of this causes stress. So obviously, when you get stressed, that can also negatively affect your body systems. And then lastly, natural body maintenance, right? Getting out there, exercising, getting that fresh air. With COVID-19 right now, we're doing social distancing, but they're not saying stop exercising. Go for those walks, get the fresh air. Do some things that are good for your body. Don't eat just candy and the nasty energy drinks and those types of things. Eat and drink healthy. So all those are factors that affect the body systems. So now we're going to talk about general body maintenance. Okay, so we're talking about general body maintenance. Like I said, diet, exercise, get some sleep, kids. Okay, as you get older, you're not going to care about staying up late. You need to get some sleep. You need to recharge your batteries. And then we also got smoking. Well, we know there's another thing that's going on out there, but we're going to talk about smoking. Smoking has over 4,000 different chemicals, okay, in one single cigarette. Out of those 4,000 chemicals, 40 are known to cause cancer. We're going to talk about cancer a little bit later. Another thing that's in cigarettes is tar. Tar settles on the surface of our organs, okay, prevents hairs from removing mucus from our respiratory tract. They also have carbon monoxide, which is picked up by the red blood cells instead of oxygen. So we suck in on a cigarette, that carbon monoxide gets into our lungs. When it comes time for the alveoli to go and send some oxygen off to those red blood cells, sometimes if there's carbon monoxide in there, carbon monoxide hitches a ride onto the cell instead of the oxygen. And then nicotine. Nicotine speeds up your heart rate, raises blood pressure, and it is highly addictive. Okay. Here's where I tell a personal story. I'm not going to tell the story here because I go online, I go on YouTube, and all those kind of things. But it can be very, very addictive. So, diseases of the organ system. We're going to start with the respiratory system, and I'm sure you guys would expect me to talk about COVID-19. We're not going to, okay? We're not talking about COVID-19. It's too new right now, and also it's a great opportunity for you guys to come up with a learning opportunity for you to do a little bit of research on COVID. But we're going to talk about emphysema, okay? Emphysema is, well, an example or a cause is smoking. So smoke from cigarettes destroys the alveoli in the lungs. So take a look at this picture right here. Down at the bottom where my arrow is, we've got a nice, healthy, normal alveoli. Okay, right here we have an alveoli that's been attacked with emphysema. Look how gummed up it is and whatnot. There's not going to be that much gas exchange occurring in that alveoli. Okay, so down here we have a beautiful picture of the left and the right lung, a smoker's lung versus a healthy lung. Okay, which one would you rather have in your body? Obviously the one on the left, they're both kind of gross, but the one on the left is the healthier lung. The one on the right is a lung from a smoker's lung. There's science exhibits every now and then that come around, and they'll show you the effects of a smoker's lung versus a non-smoker's lung. There's also videos where they'll bring in lungs, or there's actually not videos. We had a health nurse come to our school one year, and she brought in 2 pigs' lungs, and one was a healthy lung, and one was a lung that was filled with nicotine and tar. It was a smoker's lung. I'm not sure how they got a pig to smoke cigarettes. But yeah, they showed them both, and they tried to inflate them and pump them up, and you could really see the difference. Okay, so treatments for emphysema when you're not getting enough gas exchange and whatnot. The first treatment is obviously stop smoking. Okay, stop smoking, stop smoking. The next is exercise. It would seem funny to get exercise, but that exercise, you get more oxygen going in. And then the other thing is oxygen therapy, where you get the oxygen mask over top, and it sort of forces the oxygen into your lungs. Going to the digestive system, we're going to talk about ulcers. Look at that beautiful picture on the side, guys. Isn't that gorgeous? Ulcers are caused by H. pylori bacteria. It's a type of bacteria. Okay, so a bacteria that gets into our stomachs, and it's not broken down by stomach acid. It's strong. The acid in our stomachs does not kill it. Okay, and it can actually cause a small hole in the stomach lining. So imagine if there's a small hole in the stomach lining. That stomach lining is lined with mucus that prevents the stomach from digesting itself. That hole forms in the stomach lining. What's going to start happening with the digestive juices inside the digestive juices inside your stomach? They're going to start eating away at your stomach lining. So when these holes are formed, mucus is not produced at a sufficient level. So the stomach acid starts burning the muscles around the stomach. So treatments for this. Back when I was younger, I was used to give my parents a hard time. My dad would be like, "Oh, you're giving me an ulcer." They used to think ulcers were caused by stress and things like that. It has since been proven they're not. It's caused by bacteria. So the way we kill bacteria is simply take some antibiotics. You take some antibiotics, those antibiotics kill that bacteria, and you start feeling better really quickly. Some of you may have had a bacterial infection. You couldn't get better, no matter what was happening. Doctor goes and says, "Okay, enough's enough. We're going to give you some antibiotics, those things that taste like bananas and whatnot." And boom, like the next day, almost you're feeling better. The other thing is acid blockers. Okay, so those acid blockers, they go and they reduce the acidity levels of your stomach acid, so it's not eating away as bad at your stomach lining. And if it's really, really bad, you go to the surgical repair. Circulatory system. Circulatory system is a big one. Okay, we're going to talk about atherosclerosis. Big word. Okay, this is the narrowing of the arteries. So I showed you earlier how, or on the previous video, how the walls of the arteries are thick, and they have that thick muscle. That's to pump the blood, or so the blood can get pumped from the heart to the different parts of the body. And right here again is another cross section of a very healthy artery. Now imagine though, what would happen if we started narrowing this hole? Something like this. Take a look at that. We end up by getting fatty material deposited in the blood vessels. So right up here we have a big hole. Down here we have a small hole. What do you think is going to happen every time the heart pumps blood? Okay, the heart obviously would have to pump harder to get the blood through that thick arterial fatty deposits. This obviously increases blood pressure. High blood pressure, not very good. Your heart has to work a lot harder. It could also potentially decrease or stop blood flow if it gets really, really bad. If blood flow is cut off to the heart, you end up by getting a heart attack. If the blood flow gets cut off to the brain, you could potentially have strokes. Both of those could be fatal. So this can be caused by a diet high in fats and oils. So eating healthy, eat more vegetables, okay? Portion sizing. Like I love my nice big juicy steaks, but portion size the steaks, smaller portions, eat leaner meats, those types of things. That'll all help prevent this. So treatments, obviously a lifestyle change. Okay, so when this comes up, you go to the doctor and they say, hey, you got high blood pressure. You got to start considering those lifestyle changes. You got to start considering eating healthier, changing what you eat, exercising more, those types of things. Medications. There are medications that can help you with this. Blood thinners make the blood a little thinner, so it's easier to go through the arteries or the smaller holes. A stent. So I'll see if I can find a video for a stent, but what they do with a stent is they stick a long giant tube, a long giant, I guess you can say tube through one of the arteries to that blocking. And on the end of the tube, there's a tiny little balloon, and wrapped around the balloon, there is a little wire mesh. What they do is they send that balloon right to the clogged area, and then they pump a little bit of air in there, and that causes the balloon to blow up and the little wire mesh to blow up. And then they deflate the balloon, the wire mesh stays there, and it opens up it pushes the blockage and opens the hole so it's a little bit bigger. I had a nurse that came to our class a couple years ago. She's a nurse, a cardiology nurse, and she brought some of the stents in, and it was really, really interesting. So I'll see if I can find a video for you on that. Oh, yeah, here's a beautiful picture. So you can see we have the stent that goes in here. They pump up the balloon, they deflate the balloon and pull it out, and the wire mesh stays in. So it opens up the blood vessels. The other thing is bypass surgery, where surgeons actually use a healthy blood vessel to bypass the area that was blocked. So they end up by grafting a different blood vessel that allows the blood to move. Excretory system. This one's gross, guys. Kidney stones are what we're going to be talking about here. So you can see here's a kidney, cross section of a kidney. We have those nephrons here, and we have some stones that are formed. They are solid mass made up of tiny, tiny crystals, okay? And they form when urine contains too much of certain substances, like calcium stones. The biggest risk is not drinking enough fluids. When I bring this up in class, almost every single boy grabs their water bottle and takes a nice chug of water, okay? You gotta be drinking your water because we don't want these. Guys, take a look right here. We could end up by getting a block right in the urethra. Okay, they are more likely to occur if you make less than 1 liter of urine a day. So the other class I joked about, the other lesson I joked about how the bladder holds 1 liter of water. Why are kids asking to go to the washroom 2 or 3 times every class? This I sort of retract that a little bit, because if you're drinking a lot of water, if you're making less than 1 liter of water, you run the potential risk of this. So drink more water. You drink more water, obviously you're gonna have to go to the washroom more, but it helps reduce the chances of these kidney stones. Stones can block the flow of urine out of the kidneys. I don't like this picture. I don't know if this is a real picture I found online, but that is a very, very bad kidney. Let's just go to the next slide. Just looking at that is disgusting. So treatment for this: small stones usually pass on their own. This is usually when the boys start readjusting themselves because you have to pee them out. So you saw how jagged they are. Usually they'll pass on their own. Not a pleasant experience. There's this old sitcom called Seinfeld where Kramer, one of the characters on there, he has to pass a kidney stone, and it's painful to watch. Funny, but painful. There's also medicine or shock waves that can be used to help break down the stone, And then last case scenario is surgery. And that's needed if the stone is too large or if it's blocking urine flow or causing infection. I wouldn't wish this on anybody. Next, for the nervous system, we're going to talk about the Parkinson's disease. The gentleman on the right is one of my all-time favorite actors, Michael J. Fox, born in Edmonton, raised in BC. One of my favorite movies is Back to the Future. I'm going to actually ask you guys to watch part 2 for one of the units later on this year. But Parkinson's disease, it's a neurological disease. It's a disease of the nervous system, and it's caused by the slow breakdown of the nerve cells in the brain. The brain creates dopamine, which helps control muscle and muscle movement, breathing, balance, movement, and heart function. Okay, so it affects all of these things. It is a progressive disorder. By progressive, it means it doesn't come down all at once. It takes a while for the full effects of Parkinson's disease to kick in. Treatment, there is only a treatment for the symptoms, okay? There is no cure, okay? So all we need to do is treat the symptoms. We do not, the treatments do not slow down or they do not cure the disease. It is a progressive disease, which is very unfortunate, okay? Do some research on him. Another very famous actress, Selma Blair, is suffering from this. I thought the world of her. I had a huge crush on Selma Blair when I was younger, and it's really sad to see things like this happening. But it's definitely out there. Cancer. Cancer is one that affects everybody. So we're going to talk briefly on cancer. Hate it. It's probably what's going to get me. Not ideal. So cancer is actually a term used for a disease where abnormal cells divide and divide and divide without control, and they're able to invade other tissues. So right here on the right-hand side, we have a picture of normal cell division. So we've got this cell, it splits into 2 different cells, okay? And then these 2 different cells, they split into 2 other cells. If a cell is damaged, it doesn't, or there's no repair, or the cell just ends up by dying. Normal cells multiply when needed and they die when they're not needed. That's totally normal, okay? However, cancer appears when cell growth gets out of control. So here's cancer cell division. Right here is the first mutation. So you see up here, it comes down here is the first mutation, and then it mutates more, and then you can see each one of these little red things, I guess you can say, are the cells. So the cells grow at an uncontrolled growth rate. The signals that tell the cell to die, they're turned off. So the cell keeps on going. Okay. Cancer cells can spread to other parts of the body and through the bloodstream, through the blood system. That's what usually gets you. Okay. So it's not just one disease, but it is many diseases. Okay. So going back up here where it says it can spread, cancer can go from the lungs to other organs. And once it gets to the organs, that's where it gets really scary. There are more than 100 different types of cancers, okay? And the causes for cancer could be exposure to chemicals. I told you about carcinogenetics. We were going to do a dissection. Some of the items we were going to dissect are preserved in a formaldehyde solution called formalin. Well, formalin is a carcinogenetic, meaning it does have the potential to cause cancer. That's why we wear proper protective equipment. We wear the gloves. We try not to get that stuff on us. It is kept at a very, very low concentration. It's definitely deemed safe for use in schools, but it is something to make sure you keep in mind. When I worked at the museum in Edmonton, I used to have to handle formaldehyde and formalin, and we had to wear the proper materials. If we got in our hands, we used high concentrations. We made sure we really washed our hands carefully and did the proper treatment because we did not want to have suffer the effects of cancer. Excessive sunlight exposure. You guys have heard of skin cancer. I remember when I was younger, sunscreen was a non-issue. Sunscreen's a huge issue now. The higher the number, the better the protection. So 30 versus 60. Genetics. This is why I think it's going to get me. It does occur. It does have a tendency to occur in certain families. Both my grandparents on my dad's side and my grandfather on my mom's side all had it. I've had other family members, I've had uncles and aunts that have had it, cousins that have had it. Some success rates, some success stories, some not success stories. So very, very tragic. Obesity, okay? It's an epidemic in North America. Eat healthy and whatnot, but cancer, obesity can lead to cancer. Viruses, certain viruses can lead to cancer. Okay? Treatment for cancer, it varies based on the type of cancer and the stage. Okay? Stage of cancer refers to how much it has grown. Okay, so you've heard of stage 1 versus stage 4. Stage 4, it's really grown. Stage 1, it's at the earlier stages. If you can catch it at one of the earlier stages before it's spread, you have a very good chance. Okay? If the cancer is confined to one location and it hasn't spread, the most common treatment is surgery. Get rid of it. So if there's a mass of cells, maybe breast cancer is a very common one. Mass of cells in the breast nodes, whatnot, they can go and they can remove that. If surgery cannot remove it, or if it's spread too much, then we start looking at radiation or chemotherapy. Okay, the goal here is to kill the cancerous cells, kill the cells that are reproducing at a fast rate. If we can get rid of them, kill them, then hopefully they won't continue to grow. Okay, unfortunately, sometimes they do come back. That is it. A very morbid topic. We would have been talking or sort of having questions and whatnot about you know, people that have know people that have suffered some of these diseases and whatnot. Also, with the T-shirt project, you guys would have been assigned to research some of these diseases. So 2 things we didn't really talk about in this video was COVID-19, obviously the respiratory virus that's affecting all of us now. The other thing is something that you hear about a lot. Instead of smoking, what is the big thing right now? It's vaping, obviously. So in both of those cases, I'm not going to go and ask you guys to type something out or write something out for me, but what I'd like you to do is do a little bit of research, okay? I'm not assigning, I'm only going 4 lessons this week, so that's something you can do on the aside from the digestive tail and whatnot. You can go and take a look at the causes or some of the negative effects of vaping on our body, as well as this virus that's going around driving everybody bonkers and having us at school and panicking whenever we hear the news. Okay, so that's it. That's it for this system. I will be posting things on D2L. I'll likely add another video just explaining some of the assessments we're going to use, and then we'll go from there. So have a good one. This has been interesting. Our next unit is going to be light and optical systems. We're only covering 3 of the sections that are, don't worry about that. All right, that's it. We'll talk to you guys later.